And thank you guys for joining us today. And it's such an honor for you to be here with us to share your experience in leadership. And I do want each one of you to introduce yourself in the format of 3W. So what's your name? What's your company? And what do you do? Especially what analytics do you do? Yeah, so we will start with Robert.
Okay, thank you. Hello everybody. Really excited to be here. It's an honor, I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Rob Kukerman. What were the three again? It's name, company. Oh, yeah. Zefr.
Yeah.
And what do I do? What type of analytics? So we're an advertising platform on YouTube, focused on contextual targeting, and a few other businesses all focused on YouTube. We work mostly with ad effectiveness on audience measurement, so understanding the audiences that are attributed to video exposures, and understanding the effectiveness of the advertising that we deliver against.
Hi, I'm Eden. Thank you for having me. I work for PhD Media, which is an Omnicom agency. What I do there, I'm Senior Director for Performance Marketing Science. What I do for analytics. So my team covers audience analytics and media analytics. What the audience analytics is before your campaign is launched, to analyzing who to target and what channel to go after them. Media analytics is after you launch your campaign, then you're optimizing towards a KPI, either leads or revenue. So what you can do to make the campaign performance better.
Hi, I'm Marissa. Thanks so much for having me here today. I work for an organization called No Means No Worldwide. It's a nonprofit organization. And it's an organization built around ending the global organization in terms of preventing sexual assault and rape. And so we work especially with marginalized populations. I just started pretty recently, so I'm still new to that. But we, my role specifically is in monitoring and evaluation, and the monitoring piece is really around what are we doing, are programs happening as expected, are we hitting our targets for how many girls and boys we want to train, or and kind of how the program is running. And then the evaluation piece is, are we having the impact that we hope to have? So are we seeing a change in rates of sexual assault in girls and boys that take our program versus those that don't?
That's awesome. So we do have a diverse background of panelists, and we do want everybody to just share your insight from your own perspective. That will be very helpful. And I will only ask 5 questions, and the rest of the time is all yours. And you can ask as many questions as you want. We will be kicked out, as we mentioned, at 9 p.m. So I'll get started. So what has your career path been to date? Where did you start, and where have you been, and why are you doing your current job? So we'll start with Marissa.
Sure.
Yeah.
So my path, I think when I started kind of moving into the international development space when I was in undergraduate, and then after that I joined Peace Corps because I wanted to get some experience really living in a lower income country and see what that was like. And so I was in Paraguay for 2 years, and then I did a 3rd year in Costa Rica, and I was in education, mostly working with kids and literacy. And then after that, I wanted to continue, so I got my master's degree in public administration, but specifically a program geared towards working in international development. And that's when I came into kind of the whole idea of that we could use data in the social sector to assess the impact of a program. I thought that was so cool. So then I decided to go down the monitoring evaluation path, and so I worked for 5 years at another nonprofit called the Hunger Project, and then just recently moved to No Means No.
Nice. Yeah. And Eileen.
So my career path is quite simple. I work for the same company for 9.5 years. I originally come from Shanghai, then I went to Northwestern for IMC program, which is Integrated Marketing Communications. So after I graduated, I started working with Accurate. Accurate is a programmatic agency of Omnicom. Then I jumped with OMD and PhD different clients. Now, I'm here. And also, as an interesting career path, because programmatic where I started, is in an infant state. Now it's about $70 billion industry, so it's a lot to learn, a lot to experience in the past 9 years. Also, I grew from being an entry-level analyst, now starting managing a team across different verticals. So so that is my career path so far.
Do you work on any specific clients or
Yeah, I work
across?
for across, so PhD National, and my team will be all the PhD Tier 1 clients.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
And Robert.
Cool. Well, I have a question.
Yes. Yeah.
How many of you guys are all working in marketing? Mostly marketing analytics? What are the other sort of
Media planning.
planning? Okay.
HR.
HR and all this. Okay. Cool. Just want to get a little context.
Yeah.
See where everybody's coming from. Cool. Well, I've been doing this for a little while. I know I always wanted to work in media. I started off in like college radio, and I wanted to work in the music business. I think in radio, and I had that opportunity when I first got out of college. Then I went and got a master's here in New York at the New School in Media Studies, and that's how I got into kind of digital media. Spent a bunch of time at Nielsen, so that's where I probably learned, kind of got on this path. I don't think I really knew about research or analytics as a path. I was always involved in marketing and promotion. When I got to Nielsen, I really fell in love with it. So I was at Nielsen for a good 7 years, and then I was at Vivo for the past 5 years, which is a YouTube-focused, multi-channel network. Focused on music video distribution. Yeah. And then I joined Zefr about 7 months ago to lead what we're calling strategy and measurement, but really it's about building a research department from the ground up, doing basic things like planning, recommendation, measurement of campaigns. But I think the bigger concepts and themes that we are focused on are really about, in a world where user data, you talk about Acumen, like user data and those things are starting to become problematic for all of these reasons around privacy or websites, that people call our walled gardens, you can't get access to this information. So what we do at Zefr is try to understand how context matters and what's the effectiveness of context and what drives the relationship between context and the performance of context for advertising and how we can measure that, optimize it, and deliver it in a sort of deliberate way rather than sort of a, I call it, you can measure and pray, or you can try to kind of predict and deploy. And so we're going to try to go from measure and pray to, predict and deploy. So that's sort of the crux of what we're trying to do with Zefr around my team.
Nice. Yeah. And I do know like some of you guys are still students here, right? Who just recently graduated from school. Can you show your hands, like how many of you just like graduated or still in school? Okay, we have like 4 or 5 people.
Cool.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So that's why I do want to like have you guys share your background, like because students might have like a lot more potential than just marketing analytics.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. The second question I have will be, how do you define leadership? That's like a cliche question, but I feel like you guys might have some awesome answer for that. I'll start with Robert.
Okay. Your other questions were all like 3 to 5 words, so I thought about this also in like keywords, for lack of a better word. I don't know. I think for me, like leadership is about being able to sort of have a vision, express passion for that vision, and be able to execute on that vision, and have people want to do it with you, not because they have to, because they want to. And if you're able to sort of pull that together, and there's probably a lot of stuff that kind of goes around it, for me, that's what I kind of think good leadership kind of boils down to.
So vision and passion.
Yeah, and execution.
And execution.
Yeah.
And Eileen?
It actually reminds me of a cartoon. There's a leadership.
I remind you of a cartoon?
Yeah, that's what you said about in a cartoon. One cartoon is leadership can be this way. As a boss, it's more like a dictator. So you just go this direction,
Right.
and everyone go towards that direction. The other half of the cartoon for leadership is the leader is actually working with the team to carry something together, and the leader is the one that in the first spot. So to me, that is leadership is manage a team to be successful. If we think about in old days, before we have company, have civilization, right? The leadership is war to carry an army, to lead an army to win the war. And then in World War II, if you are captain of a big battleship, that is leadership too. If you are 3,000 troops trying to be successful to win the battle. So now in the company, we are, I think it's more lucky we don't have to deal with those problems, but you have a smaller scale. You can have a company, you can have a department, you can be a smaller team within that department. You all have your role. So it's define your role and being successful for that role.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Marisa?
It's so funny because what I jotted down is very similar to what you both just said. So we're
We took the same class.
on the same page, I guess. But yeah, I was thinking about a vision and being able to mobilize people towards that vision, which isn't people and resources, especially in the nonprofit world, mobilizing the resources to do so is also a really big thing that leaders need to do. And I think, yeah, but it's not just about hiring staff. It's really about creating like a positive organizational culture that can, get everyone to be, a more productive person, a happier staff culture that really leads to the best results. So I think kind of getting alignment for people, not just maybe the people you work with directly, but people throughout the organization towards your vision is what makes good leaders.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would also say leadership it's different than managing.
Yeah.
So you can be a leader and not have a team. There's lots of people in organizations I've worked with when it's like, that person's a leader because they lead by example. People want to follow them and they trust them and they come to them for things and they need their help. You can be a manager and you can have a big team and be not a leader. And we see that a lot too.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a key thing to think about.
So the differentiation will be impact and
Influence and power.
influence. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think
And my next question will be, it's fine. So my next question will be, what kind of leadership principle have you discovered through your career and that actually help you to become who you are today? So we'll start with Marisa.
I can start this time.
Yeah, sure.
To take turns.
Yeah.
I think the principle I live by today, the first is always about yourself. So being a leader is self-aware and self-improvement. Because you want to grow your influencing power, and the way you grow your power is to be a better self. So other people can look up to you as examples, they can follow you. The second principle I'm thinking about is what my manager told me in the past few years is people first. So my boss is kind of person that if I broke up from a relationship and he's in a time pitch, or took up my call if I call him. So that is the principle he lives by, people first. Things happen, like at work, we have clients, we have deliverables, but people are always there. Things can change over the time, but people are always there. So being people first is important. And the other thing I learned from especially when managing a bigger team, I think you have to prioritize on what people matters. So it's about focusing on the high performers, focusing your time to grow them, rather than fixing the weak ones. So it's hard to do, but that is something that I'm trying to learn these days. The third one I'm thinking about is, I like this phrase a lot. It's my motto. It's being humble and being hungry. As an industry, change all the time. If you just this is what I know today, this is what I know tomorrow, you cannot grow. So to learn from other people, when you talk to being a leader, it's about information. You can choose what information to give to the team and what information to receive from your team. So being humble is about knowing that your team probably knows something that I do not know, right? And to learn from each other, that is something that I feel like quite important for my career too.
Nice. And who wants to start next?
I can go.
Yeah, sure.
I also was going to say humility. You guys are taking all the answers. I think humility knowing what you don't know, and I think it's easy, especially maybe as you go farther in your professional career, to think that maybe you know everything, and no one can know everything. So I think being able to recognize what you don't know and continuing to ask questions and bring people on who can provide the expertise that you don't have, and being aware of that is really important. And I think, empowering others to do their best work in a way that's not micromanaging, and really saying, really just the big goal is you know, to reach our vision together. How we get there can be up to the team, the people you're working with. It doesn't have to be a certain way, and so that was something that I had to learn, because I think as we're in analytics, we're all very detail oriented, and so you can kind of get into the details on that. And then I think, yeah, really thinking about direct and open and clear communication when you're speaking with other people on your team. I think there's nothing more frustrating than the reverse of that, when communication isn't clear or it's constantly changing and you're not really sure what's going on. Can be very frustrating. So I think good leaders, you know, have their mission in sight and really stick to that.
Robert, your turn.
Yeah, so I also jotted down some more keywords that I'll work on. But similar themes, so that tells me that they're the right themes, because it's what you guys think as well. Kind of going back to passion, you know, passion was something I wrote down again for this. I think passion is infectious, and you know, when you're passionate about something, people feel it, and the people around you feel it, and that's a sort of starting point for me. If I care about it, and I love it, and I can show that, and the people around me love it, then you know, you can get people kind of moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
Curiosity, you know, endless curiosity is something you need, otherwise you're going to get bored. And if you're bored and your team knows you're bored, and if you kind of like, this sucks, you know, what are you guys going to do? You're going to be like, what am I doing this for a paycheck, right? So that's not going to, then you're a manager again at that point, not really a leader. Empathy. So you need, you know, sort of what you were just, you know, talking about. I think you got to have empathy. You got to be able to understand where people are coming from. Not everybody thinks the same way as you. Everybody's on different wavelengths, different sort of vibes, have different things going on in their lives. You know, you can't always jump up and down every, you know, you can be passionate, but that doesn't mean every day of your life you're the happiest person in the world, and everybody's like that. You got to be able to understand where people are coming from. Practicality, I wrote down. So, well, everything's not perfect, and you kind of gotta, sometimes you can't wait for perfect, you gotta work with what you got. Sometimes the data's wrong, sometimes you don't have all the information you need. You know, sometimes you got to get the deck to the client, right? Like, you know, whether or not the data was released, or there's something wrong, or you don't have everything you want, you got to be practical. How do I get from A to B? You know, and sometimes you got to go straight line, sometimes you got to go zigzagging it. Yeah. You can have big ideas, but sometimes you got to be practical. What can you achieve? Get there. Relationships. So it's important to have really good relationships. You want to trust people, that you want them to trust you. Personal relationships are really important, I think. And always learning. So sort of in that curiosity sort of vein. You need to always want to learn. You have to be able to learn from the people around you. If you build a team where you want to be the smartest person on the team, you've already failed. You need to build a team that kind of comes together with different expertise to sort of add to the sort of group. You know, if a good leader is sort of like a conductor, that means you need, you know, a violinist and a cello and what, you know, timpani and whatever else is in the org, I don't know. But you need to be able to pull all that together. You're not going to be able to play a race. So those are some of the things that I think about.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I have another question that's Eileen actually reminding me. So many of you here, you came here because you want to learn, like, how do you develop the qualities to become a great leader? Like, what is the quality for leadership? So that's not in the question list. I'm sorry, but like Eileen just reminded me. But I do want you to just share your experience, like share from your experience. Like, what kind of leadership quality do you think that's important, and how do you actually develop those leadership qualities along the way? Yeah, Eileen, since you brought it up. Yeah.
I recommend it because I do got those questions from either my friends or coworker or people that either interview for a manager position. They'll be like, I don't managing people right now, but how can I position myself, or what are the things I can practice right now to be in that position a year from now? So my advice is actually, you talked about this before, it's about influencing power. You can be an individual contributor, but have strong leadership. Is how you work with different teams, how you lead project, how you influence other people on your way of thinking, to lead them to go through what you think is correct. I think it's also about your the way when you are doing something, you have two options. One option is doing being what told to you. You needed to analyzing the data. For example, we're in analytics. Then you go, okay, I need to look at ABC. This is what I look at ABC. The other option is to be proactive. You are asking them why you want to look at ABC. What are the questions that you are trying to solve? Then from your experience, you may have recommendations. So to me, that is leadership. It's giving those recommendations and to using your expertise to influence the team. So the end goal is to make the whole project more successful.
Sometimes it's exactly that, like, I've learned this, I want to share this with you, make something good, and everybody's happy, and then people trust you and they come back.
And what other things do you think, Robert, is valuable as a leadership quality?
I mean, I would go back to what I was just talking about before, sort of those principles, those sort of qualities.
But how do you develop those principles and qualities?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I think you need to be self-aware. You have to want to. You need to be. Sometimes you have to be lucky to be around people.
Like mentorships.
Yeah, I think mentorships actually is a great way to think about it. To be in the right organization, have the right people, and really sort of have folks that can help you think about that. Mindfulness. You mentioned humble. It doesn't mean you have to walk around and say, hey, I'm super humble all the time or whatever, but it just means you have to be open for it, you have to be aware, and I think you need to be around it. Examples. Good examples usually are the best way to learn something. So, yeah.
I agree. I also, one time I came across a colleague who, she called it the boss book. This is kind of funny. She kept a book of things that her bosses or other people in the organization things that she really admired and liked, and also things that she didn't like. And she said, someday when I'm the boss, I want to be able to learn what's good and what isn't. I'd like to say I did that. I didn't, but I haven't. I've kept that kind of in my mind because I thought that was a really interesting way of being able to kind of reflect back what worked really well from the leaders, especially when you're starting out, and what you liked, what you didn't like, and kind of keeping that over time as a way to continually reflect. Because I think that reflection of what went well and what didn't go well is really valuable and can help you learn. Okay, how can I handle that better next time, or what can I learn from the people around me? Wanting to learn, like you said, self-aware, wanting to learn.
Yeah, I only have my last questions, then the time will be all yours. So my last question is to take analytics role in your industry, in your sector. What is what piece of advice you will be giving to the audience? Yeah, just one or two will be fine. Yeah, we'll start with Marisa. Yeah,
start. I think in a nonprofit world, passion for the issues will really take you a long way, and so that's I think I keep hearing people say that it's easy to find the hard skills. It's easy to find someone who can do analysis. It's harder to find someone with the soft skills and the hard skills together. That someone who has the passion and who has
know-how.
Yeah, and some of the softer skills about communication or cross-cultural awareness can be harder to find than someone who's an analyst. And so being able to put an analytics background alongside great soft skills is something that people are really looking for, and the passion also will take you a long way.
Yeah, I think that really makes me thinking about our interview process. In our interview process, it's easier to ask hard skills. Do you have experience with this? Do you know SQL? Do you have experience working with that project? But after you hire people, it's really the softer skill matter in the long run. The softer skill we are looking for is intellectual curiosity, being proactive, wanted to learn things on the fly, and is able to deal with ambiguous and open-ended questions. in interviews, kind of unfortunately, it's a bit harder to ask those questions unless you are behavioral question. Maybe you can get something about it. But I think that is what, if you wanted to be in an industry, hard skill is one thing, but the soft skill, I think, is what carries in the longer run.
Nice. And Robert.
Tell me the question again. Say it again.
So, like for people who are interested in a role, like an analytics role in
Right.
your sector, yeah, what kind of advice you would give them?
Well, I like what you just were saying, you know, because you ask, you want a certain level of hard skills, right? But then everything you said was passion, curiosity, learning. So what does that mean? The expectation is that you start here, but you grow to here. You know what I mean? So you got to go in thinking, hey, I'm here and I can contribute now, and my goal is to continue to grow and learn. And you want to be in an environment, like when you're looking for a job, as best as possible, you want to be in an environment that fosters that. You do not want to be in a role where you have to do the same thing over and over again to the end of days. That is not good for anyone, and doesn't help organizations either, from my perspective. Passion keeps getting talked about, so I agree with that. You got to love it, because it is hard, and you have to be smart, and there's a lot of tedious work sometimes in analytics. So you got to love it. And then the only advice I would have is that you got to have the ability to roll with it, kind of roll with the punches, because, you know, especially when you're working with clients and marketing, you know, you might want to do something one way, they want to see it this way, you might have a hypothesis that something's going to happen, it does not come out that way, the data breaks, the database isn't working, the results are late, clients screw, there's a million things that could go on. You just got to be able to roll with the punches, be able to kind of think quick on your feet and sort of be sort of nimble, and I think that if you have those sort of like mindset going in, then you'll be successful. And if you don't, then I think it's going to be really hard.
That's really resilience, right?
Yeah, resilience, of course. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. And the time is all yours. Like, if you have questions, raise your hand, and we can just and introduce yourself a little bit, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ryzen, I'm a data science manager at Verizon right now. A question here first of all, thank all you guys for coming. Good perspective, thank you for sharing. Question is, Rob, you mentioned like leadership does not equal to manager. Leadership, you lead by your vision, your execution, your passion. And you have people following you and you influence others, right? And all three of you all kind of taking like a management position as right now. I'm curious, do you guys mind just sharing if any like a moment or thought process you decided switching from individual contributor to a manager position? And also, do you have anything you're missing from being an individual contributor? Or is anything being a management able to enable you to do bigger things you were not able to do before?
So, should I take that one?
Yeah, sure.
You said you're at Verizon?
Verizon.
Verizon. I think, you know, when I started at Vivo, I was in an individual contributor role at a VP level to do strategy. And a lot of strategy roles are like that. You don't necessarily have teams, you know. So empowerment by the organization for people to, you know, to say, hey, we want you to work on this, we want you to do this, and we want you to get people behind you. You know, that's leadership. You know, anybody can sort of say, hey, you manage these people now. You know, so for me, management is kind of, you know, if you have a really good team, it can be great and it can be fun, but it's really hard. Management is like a whole other job. We could have a whole panel just about, hey, how do you manage analytics, which is different than what we're talking about here. I personally enjoy just being able to be set out with a goal, have a lot of resources provided to me, not even managing teams, just being in an organization where I have the resources and the empowerment to do something exciting and big. So for me, and you know, and if you can get people to follow along in that regard who don't have to, then you're really moving the needle. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but yeah, you know, how do you transition from one or the other? You know, I think
Grow from individual contributor to a manager role or to a leader.
Right. So sometimes you don't want it. That's where I'm going with that. But usually, you know, in sales, you see this a lot where, you know, your best salespeople, they'll make a manager and then they're really not always a great manager. They were a better salesperson. So it really kind of comes down to the organization you're in, the type of management you want, the type of team you want to run, and what you're trying to set out to do. So I don't really think about like, hey, I'm a big organization, you know, that's like a corporate thing. You know, I got You know, in big companies like Verizon, like your power is based on how big your organization is. But a lot of times you can do a lot of damage in an organization if you're just like a one-man wrecking crew with like a big idea and somebody empowering you behind it. And those are the type of jobs that I've enjoyed more in the past.
So now being having a management position, do you miss anything from that individual time?
Well, yeah, because sometimes, you know, you don't want to have, the best part about being like an individual contributor that's at a level that where you're, you know, people, you're directing something that the organization wants to, is that when you have sort of people problems, you don't actually necessarily have to deal with it. You know, you can talk to their manager, you can deal with it, because I think there's a lot of stuff that comes along with being a manager, which has nothing to do with, you know, it's sort of what you were talking about, you know. I'm a manager now, and I love it, you know, because we're building a team to do a vision. So I think if you have the right people, it's really good. You know, you mentioned something about promoting and dealing, you know, supporting your best and trying to, you know, your weakest folks you want to try to move out. Your instinct is to, and that's exactly right. That's like textbook out of management books. Like your instinct is because it's about, you know, support your weakest person because they're holding you down. Your best people, you know, want you, you know, they don't need the attention, but that's actually the opposite. Your best people want constant attention. They want to be able to know that they're growing. They want all the things that we just talked about. So, you know, the hardest thing in being a manager is to be able to do that. And those are like decisions that I don't like to have to do. I don't want to have to fire somebody. I don't want to have to make someone as passionate as me about something. You know, that's really hard. You just want to hope that everybody's like that. And so hiring is really critical. So if you are in that position and you get the chance to hire, like your probably most important thing you do, other than setting the vision and the tone for the group, is who you hire. Because if you hire bad or you get inherit a bad team, then all that management stuff that will just is what happens and it drags you down. And I personally, I think I don't like that. So, you know, that's what I miss, I suppose, from being. I don't have that problem now, but you know, I have had it. Yeah.
Yilin and Marisa, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I can tell from my own story. So when I first got promoted to be a manager, it's a change of mindset from. So I'm doing a good job in one account, and they're like, we want to fund a person like you in the other accounts, and I want you to teach them how to do your job. So the first challenge is actually dedication, because you know what the experience on how things can get done. When you hire new people, your expectation is really high. Like, just copy what I'm doing on this account. But they needed time to learn. They needed time to adapt. So I have the urge in early days to do it by myself. But then I realized that person never learned. So it's a change of that mindset of dedication to motivate people. It's about if they do not know how I change that from level 1 to level 2, what are the resources I need to give that person so she can just step into the next level, and also be patient. Then the other stage is when I sort of manage a bigger team, I would say about 4 to 5 people. Then at that time, I realized like people have different way of doing things. My way of doing things in old days may not be the right way or may not be the only way. So that is another thing about let go. Just talk to your team about here is a goal you're trying to achieve. You can do several check-ins along the project to see if they are okay, but also trust them to do their own way, to find their own way. Then I would say then several years later, which is also I learned from my boss, it's about realizing the good one on your team, the weak one on your team, and the strengths and weakness of each. So, for example, in analytics, we have people that is skewed towards analytics, very technical. You want to actually put those people in an account where they have a lot of people that are on the opposite. They are good at talking to the clients, good at presentation, so they complement with each other. Then you have another type of person, they are more into storytelling, they're probably not that technical. Then you do the opposite to them, to put them into accounts where you surrounded them with technical people. So that is, I think, is about realize the strengths and weakness. And also, yes, I do missing my time for individual contributor. I still, these days, I will trying to jump into projects and do that by myself. But that will take you time away from managing people. So what I learned in the median, happy median, is to know what kind of question you need to ask for your team. So that way to help you to stay up to date. What are the new data sources? What are the new way to do things? So you can use that information to share across the team to help each other grow.
Nice. So Marisa, do you have?
Yeah, so many great things have already been said on this. I think I've moved a bit back and forth between being individual contributor to more of a manager to more of a team to now I think I'm more in an individual contributor role again because I wasn't enjoying the management stuff so much and I really wanted to focus on the things I loved the most and so and that's something you'll need to figure out for yourself what side you enjoy being on because like you said you're right not everyone who's great at their job makes a great manager necessarily and so I think that I usually you get into the role because you love doing whatever the analytics and so the individual contributor side being able to do those analyses and produce stuff yourself is fun and there's also something great about supporting someone else or a team of people in doing that and helping them be their best selves. It can be rewarding. Depends on, it can be rewarding. It can also be a terrible experience depending on how it goes. That's management. So I think those are kind of the pros and cons and yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes, it's actually not a question, but I really just want to share my thoughts on one of the questions what's the quality about leadership because of course I don't hold that high positions as the guests do, but I personally have been managing a team of 11 since last year for my small business. So I think that put me on a thought about leadership a lot of times. So I kind of wanted to share an observation. Before we started this event, we just had an issue with our technical problem, right? We cannot connect the projector with the computer. And I see Robert, he just automatically came up with some solution. He started to go to Sydney to ask for whether other people have the connector, and also maybe ask the audience whether they have computers, and also try using phone. It's very creative. So to me, that is really leadership because that's how you solve problem. Without being asked, you show your autonomy and also your ownership. To me, that's really leadership, especially in the maybe startup world, because the path of the startup is not structured. Every work is unstructured. You have to really identify what's the problem and how to solve it. And once you propose that solution, everybody is automatically following your instruction or your structure of solving problems. So that's kind of stand you out in this team and make you a leader. That's automatically made you a leader. So I think that is really leadership. So and also thank you for providing the solutions. Yeah.
Yes.
I have
Introduce
a quick
yourself.
question.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Chenny. I'm currently working in marketing analytics in a beauty company. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's really inspiring what you just said. I have a question about influence. I know that all three of you talked about leadership is about influencing other people to work together. So would you be able to share an example or two about how do you actually build up your influence among the team or even across departments? Yeah.
Who want to take it first?
I can say just a recent example that I'm working on. Influence to me is part of thought leadership and part of listening to other people. So we are doing an ITP. I'm not sure if you've heard about ITP. It's a Safari
Intelligent
tracking prevention. So
yeah.
basically what that means
Toss
if
them
you
the
are,
cookies.
yes, so it means big for advertising industry. So Mac is taking the stand. If you are viewing an ad from your Safari browser, there's a very big limitation for how much we can track you. So how much we know who you are and if you convert it later on. So that's a big impact. So we needed to, at that time, we needed to find out, quantify the impact, how we are thinking about the problem, how significant this is to the client. So at that time, I was trying to, no one really wanted to do this because it's a big topic. It can be so many different things. It can be a big topic. So the way I'm trying to do, I'm not in the position to do this job because it's a client and I'm not directly really scoped for that client. But then what I did is, here is how we can think about this. So I put together a framework. The framework is how that impact management, how that impact the media optimization, how that impact audience simplification. And here are the questions we should ask about ourselves. Then I invite here is my thought process. What do you think? Anything you want to add? And the person I invited are the people that has specialty in those different groups. They actually add their questions. So I consolidate and send that to that client. So this is what we are doing right now, and right now we are trying to do this for agency overall. So that spin off later on to be a POV for the agency overall. So to me, that's influence. You're not necessarily in that role, but you can take a stand on helping everyone trying to find a solution.
I have a solution.
Yeah.
Buy contextual from Zefr.
Yes.
Solves the cookie problem.
Or YouTube inventory.
Yeah, for YouTube.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes, I think it depends. I think sometimes it's by accident, and sometimes we're talking about influence, right? And
Yeah.
people, like,
How do
sometimes I think it's by accident, by stroke of luck, serendipity. Sometimes it's, deliberate. So, accident would be an example I have is, and it actually kind of changed the course of my career. When I was at Nielsen, I was in a business development role. I was working on licensing different Nielsen data sets for different use cases to different types of companies. I had an experience already in digital advertising. Programmatic was starting to come out. I had worked in, in ad networks. Nielsen was really kind of old, and people, they had no idea what was going on, and we were rolling out a new product now called digital ad ratings. DAR, yeah. And nobody in our organization, my bosses was charged with selling this and rolling this out into this ecosystem, and nobody knew anything about it. So I said, I just made it like a deck about programmatic that was just like, hey, this is how programmatic works. This is where the data kind of fits into this. This is what we should think about. And I just kind of did it for her because she was like, hey, and I ended up there, she was like, this is great, can you present this to the agency team? And then word got out that I had this deck and another group wanted me to do it. Next thing you know, I'm kind of presenting, now I have a part-time job where I'm presenting this deck around the whole company to different groups to explain this to them. It kind of took on a life of its own. I was promoted ultimately because of it to run one of our digital sales teams and, kind of off in a new direction. So that was sort of by luck because I knew it. So now all of a sudden I have influence over this and I'm sharing what I've learned and people are using it and all of a sudden I'm an expert or not, but perception that way. I think when it's more deliberate is when, you have some, hey, you're here to do this. You kind of have these resources. The organization is not doing this. You need to kind of figure out how to get us from here to there and, good luck. And for me, then it's really about building consensus, understanding like people's roles, like it's lots of individual meetings, like building relationships with people, getting the people who are key to an organization to trust you, to know where you're coming from, understand you want to keep your goal in mind, let them know what you're doing and what you're trying to do, but try to understand their angles, what they have, and that's people work. Like the actual work, hey, I'm building this data product that's going to do this and that, and we're going to make all this money because we're going to sell DAR, audience guarantees, digital, whatever it is, which is really an example of what I would do. But I spend half my time it's people stuff. Relationships, consensus, and trying to like get everybody kind of pointing in the same direction, or if they're not going to, why. So, sometimes it's on purpose, sometimes it's happy accident. But you got to be like, if you're passionate and you know what you like and you add value, that's the key, the consistent thing across, Yeah.
There is something.
I think the thing that both of you described was kind of listening to the needs and also be able to like identify a strategic priority that the organization needs and then acting on that was really how the influence was developed. And I don't know, that's something you can learn over time. Maybe some people naturally do it, but I think that really being able to kind of understand what does the organization need, what are the priorities, how do the challenges I see fit into this, because you can have a great idea, but if it's really not on track with the organizational priorities, you're not going to be able to, it's going to be much harder to influence people towards the idea. So I think it is kind of how, it also fits into to the strategy and the needs of the organization. And I think, yeah, when you hit on something that is needed, you'll see a great response. People will be excited about it. So.
Nice. Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm a media supervisor at Gravity, which is under Dentsu Aegis. I have a question. So you guys have been talking about how to influence and also be impactful for other people like your team. But at some point of your work or career, you must be feeling tired of day-to-day routine. How you gonna motivate yourself, personal story experiences on that?
Keep your passion going.
Well, I think that goes back to you gotta love it core, because every day is not a good day. Just because I love it and I'm happy and passionate about what I do doesn't mean I'm happy about it every day. So, but if you love it overall, that'll keep you going. And I just think you gotta want to learn new things and grow. That's sort of what I was saying before. What's the next job you want to do? What do you want to work? What do you want to learn? And then go find a role that gets you there. You don't have to be so specific. Hey, I'm gonna be a manager, then a senior manager. I'm not saying to be that deliberate. I'm just saying, what's out there that you like? What do you want to be around? Can you be in an organization that gives you new opportunities? And do you feel like you're growing towards something or you're getting to something? That's how I do it. Is it what's the goal? I like what I'm doing, and I'm still learning. And when those things sort of yeah. In fact, when I was a manager, and especially at Nielsen, where people are miserable, okay, cool. What group are you?
I was with Clarity.
Okay, so didn't they just get sold?
Yeah, but I left before that.
Okay, cool. So, they were miserable with their job.
Yeah,
exactly. So, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I used to have this sort of thing. It was like a pain index. I would talk to people. I'm like, how much of your day is truly painful versus how much is it not? We would talk about that because I was like, every job and where you work, it's going to have some level of things that suck. And when it starts to creep above an acceptable amount, that's when it's time to jet. And so for us, I was at 30%, 40%. What is the average job pain that any job's going to have? And when you kind of creep into the other side of that with the tipping point, then it's time to go. And so I don't talk about that as much now because I've worked at other companies and it's not as apparent, where people every day are coming into your office wanting to unload on you. That was always my thing. I'm like, let's break out the pain index. What level are we at here? Oh, 30%. Oh, you're fine. Love will lead the way. But if you're at a 60% pain index, you just gotta move on. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about too. So my rule is 80-20. 80-20 is 80% of the time you are okay, you are happy. 20% of the time.
You're even more. I'm like you can take it up to 40 for pain.
So it's equivalent of
She wants 80% joy.
Equivalent to one day of a week if you feel like I think not everyone's lucky enough to do jobs that you love 100% of the time, so it is okay to sometimes you have to do it because of you needed to get it done. In terms of self-motivation, I feel like it just a lot of it I would say the struggle we created for ourselves. And a lot of the struggle, it could be people-based. People-based is stuck in me. Sometimes I don't like working with someone, and someone sort of rub me wrong way. I will keep thinking about that more than the job itself. So over the time, I feel like to learn to identify what makes you unhappy, and if it's people-based, just let it go because they are coworkers. You don't need to make friends with them, right? It's your choice. To Rob's point, if a job, your happiness index is much lower, then to think about what makes you happy and how you can get there. So you can create a roadmap for yourself. What are the skill sets you needed to learn to do the type of projects that make you happy? And you track yourself. Once you make your progress, you will be much happier.
Lots of thoughts on this because I think like many industries, the rate of burnout in nonprofits can be really high especially because people care so much about what you do. You're doing something where you're like, I'm trying to end hunger, I'm trying to end rape, or really big things that you're working on. Even though most of your day might be, I'm actually just sending emails to people. You kind of walk in with that mission and wanting to do that, but it's really easy to burn out on that, and really easy to, you know, jump on board with a great mission and want to work on it 24/7 and burn yourself out. I feel like I saw that happen a lot, that you do kind of have to set boundaries for yourself in terms of, I'm not going to work 24 hours a day on this, even though it's great, because it's not very helpful if in 3 months I'm basically,
That's a great point.
yeah, like you can't, you know, like jump into the mission, but you need to take care of yourself, because if you're completely burnt out in 3 months, you're not going to be able to achieve your goal. And so I think that, and yeah, I think just trying to, it can be so hard sometimes to deal with all the stuff, just to all kind of the conflicts. And, you know, I think one thing I saw a lot was just trying to get everyone back on the vision sometimes, because we would, even in a nonprofit, like break out into, we'd be fighting amongst ourselves. We all have the same goal, we all have the same vision, and yet we're like fighting amongst ourselves on how to get there. So, you know, reminding yourself of why you're there.
Was to implement this sort of concept, this learning, get people on board, figure out how to do it and stuff like that. And sometimes it's more fun to be empowered. And I said you get the opportunity to be a kind of a one-man wrecking ball, but I don't mean it to disrupt the culture of the company. I more meant that you get to kind of just get set out on a path and like break down walls and sort of create something new. Not to be destructive, but to kind of
To build.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming today, and thank you for sharing all your very good stories and experiences. And let's take a selfie together, and it's free to network now. Yeah, let's take a selfie. Thank you guys.
Thank you.